entering into a relationship. If you're dating someone and before you get serious, you're like, okay, let's agree at the point with which we decide to end things, right?
Yeah.
It'd be an interesting conversation because there's nothing bad going on. So you could probably have a good discussion like, okay, well, if we have more bad days than good days, then we're going to decide to part ways. Like the other person gets an opportunity to say, hey, I'm cutting it, right?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Barcast. My name is Brad. This is Kristian. You guys know what we do. This is episode number 33.
Wow, Patrick Ewing.
Yeah. Is there any other good 30, 30?
Oh yeah, Alonzo Mourning.
I don't know who that is.
He's a Hall of Famer, but it's okay.
But anyways, you guys know what we do. This is a Barcast basically about what, entrepreneurship, our journeys. We talk about our trials and what? We celebrate our success. We celebrate whatever.
It felt like you were maybe going to make it, maybe not. You're a little shaky. I was
a little shaky. It's been a while. But whatever. If you like this kind of stuff, hopefully we earn your subscription and a thumbs up from you. And we just got done having our first guest on, so that was pretty cool.
Super cool.
Brad and Dorian were really gracious and allowing us to use them as guinea pigs and stuff. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and I get you off my back a little bit about guests, riding me about these damn guests. But yeah, we had fun. I did enjoy it. I think there are no two better people to start off with. It was good.
Yeah.
And they crushed it. I was really pleased with how it all went down.
Yep.
So looking forward to being able to, coming into the new year, for us to actually get more guests on. Speaking of, 6 weeks till the end of 2019. Isn't that crazy?
It's unbelievable.
Well, I guess when this films, it'll be like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
True. That's true. What I'm pumped for is what we have planned for the new year.
Absolutely.
We have new logos. We're basically rebranding the entire Barcast to just stand on its own. Up until this point, it's just kind of been living on the Own the Chaos brand, and we want to kind of separate this while keeping it on the same channel. So I'm really pumped for that and kind of giving it its own identity.
Speaking of, you like my shirt?
I do.
You didn't comment on it. And what I realized, I never realized this, as I put on the shirt today, what this says, buy the effing dip.
That's right. And then you got WeTradeHQ.com.
I thought it said Only Chaos. I'm like, that doesn't look like Only Chaos. And I was trying to read it. Buy the effing dip.
Yeah, man. So those are some things that you should be looking forward to that I'm super pumped about. And this is the time of the Barcast where we talk about our toasts and what we're drinking today.
Yeah, it feels good to be back.
It does.
I feel like I go through these spells where I'll come up with 10 toasts because all my toasts are original. Brad prefers to go on Google because he has zero creativity whatsoever. But me, I come to the game with originality, baby. So they were just flowing out of me today. I had 3 or 4. And then as I was walking to get these mics, I actually came up with one. So I'm going to put mine.
You came with one on the spot like that?
On the spot.
Yeah.
On the spot.
That is some talent.
So
right there.
I feel like I should kick it off.
Go for it. What are we drinking today?
We're throwing it back. We're going to throw it back to our bottle.
Bottle 1A.
Our Jack Daniel's bottle, housed at the Horseshoe Came In On Saloon.
Which I got to say, the comments from our subscribers, they're almost kind of let down when we're not drinking Jack. It's kind of crazy. When we deviate from Jack Daniel's, they're like, bring the Jack back. So here you go.
It's back.
Black Label is back. So there you go.
All right, here's still number 7. All right, the toast.
Let's do it.
Original, created by Cat. Here's to all the sexy mothers and fine-ass brothers. I'm looking at you, Michael B. Jordan. Cheers.
I'm not.
Oh, sorry.
No,
sorry.
I gotta go, man.
Baby bird.
All right. Here's to my schizophrenic friend. They're good people. Good old Jack.
I wish mine would have landed a little bit better.
Yeah.
I liked it. I wanted a Michael B. Jordan.
That's what I'm saying. It's what we told Dorian. Remember, he was all nervous. It's all about the execution. The pauses, the execution, all of that. You got to sell it.
I nailed it in my head. I've done better. But good thing yours was all right.
Anyways, it's always good kind of going back to the old original Jack. You know, it's just like an old friend. You're like, oh, I missed you.
Yes. And it's a lot less legwork, so I don't have to do any research. I just know old puppy Jack here will come through for us. But it definitely feels like home.
Yeah,
I agree.
Having said that, now that we've gone through our own toasts, we're going to go off to the People's Toast. So if you're not familiar with this, we ask our subscribers to give us their own original toast to see if they can do better. So here is this week's People's Toast.
Here's to lesbians. Thanks for nothing.
So what did you think about that one? Let us know in the comments. If you think you can do better than that, make sure that you hashtag People's Toast on your favorite social media platform. We'll search it out, and you just might show up on the next video.
It was easy to beat us this week.
I think so.
Both of us.
Yes.
So, what are we talking about this week?
We're talking about you, my friend.
All right, we're talking about me.
Yes, what you love. It's your favorite thing.
That's disrespectful.
It's not disrespectful. It's the truth.
We all love talking about ourselves.
But what I really want to talk about is your journey as an entrepreneur, because if you guys have been following us for a while, you guys know that Kristian used to be my college instructor in a business management class. But if you're not familiar with that, now you know. And so I was actually in Kristian's class as he was in the middle of one of his businesses. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit, because you've had success and you've had failure, and that's kind of like all part of the journey that most people don't really understand. I think a lot of people get down on themselves when their first business doesn't work out, and really that's just kind of a stepping stone in the whole process of just becoming your own boss, owning your own business, and being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say I've had success and I've had failure, and I've never thought about ever having a failing business. It's always been an evolution.
Yeah.
And so they're all, in a way, sort of tied together to me. Obviously, they're separate LLCs, so as an entity, they're different. But for me, in my mindset, what started out as one thing, it was sort of a winding path to where I am now.
Right.
And who knows how this is going to work. But as I explained to anybody I coach, I don't think it's success or failure. You're learning,
Right.
and you're developing. And so it's most businesses are never going to get sold. So it's an opportunity to learn and make some money while you do it. Great. If it gets bought, that's even better.
Yeah.
So anyways, where do you want to begin?
I mean, let's start off with just your first business.
Yeah.
Like, how did that come about? Why did you do it? Kind of lead into that.
Yeah. So
Because it kind of ties into what you're doing right now, right?
yeah, absolutely. So my first business was called 26.2 Consulting, and it sort of started by accident. I was always getting, at the time, I was running this bar, and
Which, by the way, we were at the horse you rode out on.
yes. So
Yeah,
I wasn't
yeah.
running this bar. This bar was a t-shirt shop.
Yeah, we're in Fells Point, Maryland.
Yeah, so
Baltimore
next
City.
door I was running the Horse You Came In On Saloon, and I just was that person that people would call me to ask me questions about business, about management, and I found as time went on I was getting more and more calls. So
Yeah.
we're talking about, it must have been, so this is 2008, 2009. I started my business around 2009. So I'm getting all these calls, and it just got to the point where so many people asked me for advice. Like,
Yeah.
one of my buddies in North Carolina, we were just spitballing, and I'm like, you know what? I wonder if I could actually like create a business off of this, consulting. So at the time, he had just started a business. It was like a DJ company, and he basically came into a business that was already existing and came on as a business partner. And so he was like, you know what? Why don't you? I think you could be really successful at what you do. I'd love to be sort of like your first, be your guinea pig.
Yeah.
We can get some value off of you. And the deal was I would work pro bono, and they would pay for my flight down there. It was North Carolina they were in, Raleigh, North Carolina. So they would pay for my flight down, my accommodations, and in exchange, I would work with them.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. So started my company. They wanted to transition from a DJ company, event production company. So I just start working with them. Goes well, and it happened pretty quickly where I started working with them, and within a few months I decided to form my LLC and start moving forward with it. Well, at the time, I'm leveraging the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, which is a free service for entrepreneurs. So if you're an entrepreneur, definitely use that service. So you have the SBA, the SBDC. Any major city has that service. It's free for entrepreneurs. And really the goal is to encourage more small businesses to grow.
Yeah.
So I went there, and I'm talking to this guy at the SBDC, and he was a business owner himself, just doing it in his free time. And he basically was like working through my business plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so asking me my experience. We had this hour-and-a-half conversation, and by the end, he's grilling me about all these questions and about my background and experience. By the end, he ends up not only sort of giving me the seal of approval as far as my business concept, but he asked me if it's okay if he puts me in his resource guide for any small businesses as one of the 3 recommended marketing services.
That's awesome.
So it was super cool.
Yeah.
Came out of nowhere. Honestly, I probably shouldn't have been on that list. I wasn't ready, but he sort of believed in what I was talking about and my background before I even believed in it. So anyways, that starts bringing me clients. And I intentionally decided that what my company would be was basically a sales and marketing firm for small business startups. So as a startup, I basically create your sales and marketing program, and I would allow you to sort of have the framework to move forward as a small business. I intentionally did not work at bars and restaurants, because up until that point, my only experience was bars and restaurants, and my thought was, that's low-hanging fruit. I can do that whenever I want.
Yep.
I don't want to get typecasted as a bar guy, so I didn't work on any bars, any restaurants. I won't say that I didn't get into it enough to decide whether it was a success or not. What happened was that original client, the event production company, my buddy who started the company has an opportunity to start something else. And so one of his clients for that company asked him to do like AV integration, basically like an audiovisual install. And it was like a $15,000 job. And he's like, Kristian, listen, this isn't really what we do, but I think there's a lot of money in it. Mm-hmm. And he pitched me on, what if I started a new business? Do you think it'd be viable? I was like, heck yeah, it would be viable. And then the next thing he asked me was, would you partner with me and help me with the business side?
Yeah.
He knew all the AV stuff. And so I'm like, you know what, this looks like a great opportunity for me. He didn't have any money, so I fronted some of the capital, and I helped with the cash flow. So I put my business on pause. Like, I didn't even realize it, but it just was so busy right from the jump. That was Avant Systems Integration. I did it from Baltimore. He was sort of the feet on the street in North Carolina. And, you know, we just were off and running. Had our first client before we even had the business.
And that was the business that you had when I first started your class. Mm-hmm. And the cool part for me was that, like, you actually brought Avant into the class, which is something that I think is completely unique and completely different than what most teachers teach. So, like, if you're in a, you know, and if you've never taken a college course as far as like business concerned, or really any college course, a lot of it's just, here's a book, here's a curriculum, you work your way through it, and that's it. You know?
Yeah, and you're working on theoreticals.
Yeah, and so for you, what I felt was like awesome about your class, and why I still herald you as one of like my best instructors, my favorite instructors,
yeah, of course,
was because you brought those real world experiences, and like you were actually having like legitimate questions or legitimate problems that you were trying to work through, and then you brought it into the class and let us respond accordingly. And like, it was cool that you took that from the class and applied it to the business, and then came back with, okay, here's what worked, here's what didn't, let me know what you guys thought, blah blah blah. So like, it was really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And
brought that in.
That was the feedback for most students, was the ability to have real world examples that I had in the past. And examples that I was going through at the time, and through the class we could see it play out, and that was fun. I know it was cool for me, but I know it was fun for students when they came to class and they were like, "Hey, what's going on with that one situation? What's the update on that situation?" So that was incredible, and that gave me a competitive advantage as a professor because I was able to bring that to the class. It wasn't just these theoretical stories with Apple or Microsoft or whoever that you'll actually never deal with or speak to. It was existing challenges that I was facing. And I mean, it was good to have feedback, but I was just working through the process with the students. Oftentimes I already knew what I was going to do, but to allow them to work through it while I'm working through it was a great experience.
Yeah, that was really awesome. Like that was probably, like I said, why you were probably one of my favorite instructors. So you're in Avant, you're doing well there. So then kind of like talk me through about how you kind of transitioned out of that.
Yeah, so we were in Avant for probably about 4 years. We had Avant for about 3 or 4 years. It was growing. We were having employees. We were seeing success. Excuse me. And really, sort of the tipping point was we got so busy that, my business partner's name's Scott. Scott called and was like, "I really think you need to be down here," and I agreed because at that time I was only going down maybe once a month.
Yeah.
And I agreed that like I needed more time down there, or my role needed more time down there, and we just had very open and honest communication. My daughter had just been born,
right,
and it wasn't possible for me to get down there, so we knew that he needed somebody local and a business partner that was local. And I wasn't able to commit that. And so we began exit negotiations. That was I would say one of our missteps was not having an exit strategy, not just for our business, but for partners, because partners could have different ideas of what they want to do with the business.
Right.
So if I want to get out, what's the exit strategy? What's the valuation method? And really that was our challenge, was what was the value of the company? If you can do it, what I would advise anybody, and I've talked to you about this, figure out your exit, your partnership exit, and the valuation method you're going to use beforehand. That way there's no debate, no argument. It's just, here's the formula, let's put it into place, and it is what it is.
Would you say that's probably the most overlooked part about part of starting a business, is like figuring out what the end game is?
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
I've always thought about what the top of the mountain looked like for me as far as We Trade HQ is concerned, and I've never actually come up with a clear, I guess, indication of what that would look like. Like, where is the top? And then once I get there, where do I go from there?
Yeah.
Is the top of the mountain on another mountain? And trying to figure all of that out. So I think that is really important. A really important key takeaway from this conversation is just being able to understand that you need to have some sort of exit plan. Starting the business is one thing, and that's challenging enough, but also having that plan of being able to get out of it, I think, is obviously really important too.
Yeah, and there's a few scenarios. I mean, there's, where do we sell the company? How do we exit, right? Are we trying to get bought out?
Right.
Are we trying to have this forever? There's that piece, but then what's more likely is one partner wants to leave, one partner wants to stay. Mm-hmm. That's the bigger thing, and it's almost like entering into a relationship. If you're dating someone and before you get serious, you're like, okay, let's agree at the point with which we decide to end things, right?
Yeah.
It'd be an interesting conversation because there's nothing bad going on, so you could probably have a good discussion like, okay, well, if we have more bad days than good days, then we're going to decide to part ways. Like, the other person gets an opportunity to say, hey, I'm cutting it, right? Now, whether you do it or not, I don't know, but it would be a very easy conversation to have.
Right.
The same thing happens when you're talking about partners, business partners. With business partners, it's often overlooked because you're not thinking about the end or getting bought out, but it's a great time to talk about it in the beginning before it's not on our mind, because we can have an honest discussion.
Right.
Because as time goes on, there's all these layers that add on to it, and it makes it really tough to think clearly and to make decisions clearly. And if you're the one wanting to leave, most likely you want a higher value. If you're one that's staying in, you're pushing down the value and giving any reason why it should be a lower value, and it's a tough game. So all that up front, whether you're going to use it or not, you should do, and then you can revisit it once a year and adjust things as you see fit.
Yeah, I mean, just because you have an exit strategy doesn't mean that you have to stick to that exit strategy. I mean, if things are going really well, I mean, let's just say We Trade HQ blows up and we're doing awesome, then maybe we don't want to sell it, or maybe we want to wait to sell it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been a really big learning experience for me, and even Jake was just, we never really thought about that before. And we've kind of talked about it in passing here and there, but never really like sat down and created a clear cut and, clear indication of what we wanted to do or where that top of that mountain actually ended up being.
Yeah, and I would do that, and I would do it, and I would revisit it annually. It's one of those things that I've seen time and time again come and bite people in the butt. So I would encourage most people to do that. So for me, the other thing I wanted to point out, fortunately, we ended up coming to an agreement. It wasn't easy. It tested our relationship, but it all worked out. We're still really good friends now. We came to an agreement. One thing I took from that I see that I wanted to sort of impress upon people that are trying to sort of dissolve their partnership is to remember to get creative. Most people, or remember you can be creative.
Yeah.
Most people just think if we have no money in the account, both partners are stuck. We did we did a little bit of cash, but a lot of it was like we agreed on a value, and then I was paid in expenses. So like my car was paid for. I had the company credit card that I had a stipend.
Right.
So for me, it didn't matter. I was fine with that. It also was used as a write-off for the business, so it benefited Avant, and it allowed, it prevented the company from being like cash poor. So you got it. There's ways to do it. Getting creative is really important. Maybe doing it over time, over payment. There's so many ways you can do it. The bottom line is, don't let money prevent you from ending a partnership that needs to end. Or for just, where that's run its course.
Yeah.
So that's really important for people to remember. So we ended the partnership. I think it was a win-win. I was burnt out, and I had a newborn, and so I ended up sort of putting entrepreneurship on hold. I actually just stopped with it. I was like, I'm done with it. I'm getting a 9 to 5. Yeah, and so I went back to teaching. Went to higher ed, started a whole new career, and through teaching, I was already teaching at the time. There was a little bit of an overlap, but I just fully committed into higher ed, and then about a year and a half, I started getting the itch again. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I'm recharged, I'm ready to go. I had a lot of personal things going on at the time that it wasn't just business that burned me out. I had a lot of personal family issues, other personal issues that I just couldn't.
Just a lot of
distraction. Couldn't take, yeah. And so stress level was high, so I was like, I need to stop. I need to take this stress off my life. And so I had, straightened some things out in my personal life. Had about a year and a half under my belt, just no worries, working a 9 to 5, and I started getting the itch again. And so at that point was when I started what my company is now, 262 Hospitality.
And so what you're doing right now is kind of backtracking to what you did in the beginning with 26.2. So now you're back to consulting, and for me personally, like I watch you working with Avant and everything like that, but now that you're with 262, for me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like to me like this is where you're most happiest, and I think that this is where you do your best work. Being able to kind of like see the entire picture and kind of look at it from a bird's eye view and just kind of be like, okay, this is what's going on. This is kind of like what needs to be done. And then you execute and then, kind of run with that. And so I think you're exactly where you need to be as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. When I was with Avant, I remember having these conversations with my business partner, Scott, and Scott would always try to sell me on going down to Raleigh and all this other good stuff and talk about how big Avant could be.
Yeah.
And I always would say, like, this is your passion.
Right.
This is your vision.
Right.
I'm championing your vision.
Yeah.
And something that I think that's a strength of mine is I can champion a vision, but it wasn't truly deep inside me what I wanted to do. It was just money and opportunity. And so for me, it was always, Avant's cool, but I want to do my own thing and I want to see what I'm made of. Mm-hmm. And I won't even say I'm there yet, right? Because there's things I'm doing that are getting there, but I'm not investing as much time with my company as I need to or as I want to, but I'm doing it. No, I'm doing what I can now to know that it'll get me in position to do that. So that was always the issue with me. And so when Avant ended, and then I decided to get back into it, it was like going over to the shelf and being like, all right, let's dust this thing off. And so I went back to 26.2 consulting, and I sat there with it and decided, okay, what do I need to do with the company?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of cool to see it all come back full circle, and you kind of going back to your roots and kind of seeing how this is all developed. And then that's why I wanted people to kind of just hear your story about, you know, they always hear about me, they always hear about We Trade HQ, and they're like, well, who's this Kristian guy? So I wanted people to kind of get to know you a little bit more, and so thanks for sharing that story. I really appreciate it. And let me know what you guys think. Let me know, do you think that we hit the nail on the head as far as an exit strategy? Do you think it's one of the most overlooked parts about starting a business? Is it something for you as a business owner or somebody who's just getting started, is this something that you overlooked? I want to hear from you. Let us know in the comments below. And that's going to do it for this week's Barcast. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully I get a like and subscribe from you if you want to see more content such as this. We air this every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Kristian, thanks again. Appreciate it, man.
You're welcome.
And I know, like, I didn't even take a breath. I didn't give you a chance to respond. But anyways, thanks guys so much for tuning in. As always, I'll see you all before the bell. MB Smith is out.